What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays. Today, we are joined by my good friend, Kenneth Gruenfelder.
How's
And
it going?
as you guys know, as I said before, he came on for our 2 hour long draft recap. He's back again. Today, we're going over another NIL deal, which is crazy. I feel like we've been going over NIL deals almost every day. To get into it, basically all NIL deals are not the same. We went over Lenore Sellers yesterday. Lenore Sellers rejected, I think it was like $4 million NIL offer, which I really liked. South Carolina's on the rise in the SEC. He's in a great conference. He's a first round pick. He showed loyalty to his program. I like that deal. I don't like jumping over for a little bit better situation or a little more. We went over Quinn Ewers' NIL deal in about 2 months ago, which I thought was a little ridiculous. Quinn Ewers ended up being a seventh round pick. He ended up choosing the NFL. He could have stayed another year in college. He has a huge pedigree. But not only that, Quinn Ewers was rumored to get an $8 million NIL offer, which I thought was crazy. He went to the NFL. He's not getting $8 million in the 4 years of his NFL deal. I thought that one was crazy. And then the biggest saga everybody knows, Ken, you probably heard it as well, the Nico Iumeulava saga with the NIL deals. If anybody doesn't know, Nico Iumeulava got a little too greedy. He demanded Tennessee to get more money. Tennessee did not think he was worth that. They basically let him go, which was crazy because it was at the end of the transfer portal cycle. So they had to really adjust on the fly. We're getting another quarterback in there. He ends up not getting the money he wants and going to a worse situation in UCLA. So before we get into this, with the Lenore Sellers deal, Quinn Ewers, Nico Iumeulava, I know you're not the craziest in the college football world. You specialize more in pro football. I know you've heard at least most of these. Any opinions on those three?
Yeah, no, it is definitely interesting. With Quinn Ewers, it would have been interesting to see what he would have done had he had not gone to the NFL and what team he could have potentially landed with. Because it's obvious he probably wasn't going to be the starter with now Arch Manning down there. So, I mean, only time will tell with what happens now that he's in the NFL with the Dolphins now. And then with Nico, yeah, I mean Tennessee. I mean that's a team that made the playoffs last year. They ended up losing to Ohio State, and like you said, ended up going to a worse situation in UCLA. So he's kind of betting on himself to kind of turn that program around. And only time will tell with what happens there, and if Tennessee ended up making the right move. So yeah, I mean, look, now we're in a world where, college athletes are getting paid. And, if they want a significant offer, if they want an offer that they feel is better for them, then they're going to take one if they have to leave a program that they really like to go elsewhere to play and get a better chance. So, yeah, that's kind of really my thoughts on those situations.
Now, I think it's definitely, I said it time and time again, I think it's better for the sport as college football fans to not see everybody going to a better situation. I like when the transfer portal and the NIL money is really giving you a significant upgrade. If you're behind a 5-star and you're a highly touted guy and you're just not getting the opportunity to play, it allows you to go elsewhere. Or if you're making your mark in a smaller program and you just exploded off the scene and now you could go to a bigger program, a much more significant opportunity, I think that makes sense as well. As I was saying with the Lenore Sellers deal, going to another team in the SEC for a little bit more money when you're already rumored to be a first round prospect, I think that's a situation where you, as a college football fan, want to see the guys stay loyal. I think this transfer portal, this NIL money should be used for a significant upgrade, significant more money, significant better situation. I don't think it should just be used to just keep jumping ship, which I'm worried it's going to be because the revenue share with these bigger programs is just getting higher and higher, and it seems like the big fishes are going to get all these guys. Now, getting into the newest NIL saga, we are getting into Diego Pavia. Now, Diego Pavia, I don't know if you remember, he's responsible for one of the biggest upsets in last college football season. quarterback of Vanderbilt. They upset Alabama last year. It was a crazy upset in the college football world. He decides to stay in Vanderbilt, and he made some pretty crazy statements. Now, like I said, I'm all for people staying loyal, but in this situation, it just doesn't make sense to me. Diego Pavia is a guy in a loaded QB class next year and the year after. He's not a guy that's highly touted in this class. I mean, maybe he's a top half quarterback in college football. Maybe he could be next year a late round guy in the NFL or possibly an undrafted guy. Who knows? Maybe he has a killer season and stock rises. I don't think it's going to be. The quarterback classes are loaded. Now, Diego Pavia said on a podcast that he was rumored to get $4 to $4.5 million in NIL offers to transfer out of Vanderbilt to an SEC school, to a couple SEC schools, which just doesn't make sense to me. If you're not a highly touted guy, if you're not going to be a first or second round pick, how do you pass up on that significant amount of money to stay at Vanderbilt where you're at the bottom of the SEC? And when we look at Vanderbilt in conference last year, they were 3-5 in conference. They were 7-6 overall. Again, they couldn't hang in this conference. And along with this, he made some pretty crazy statements on this podcast as well. He said, first, Vanderbilt is going to run Tennessee. He hasn't won a game against the Tennessee Volunteers yet. And lifetime, I think in the last 30 years, they're 24-6 Tennessees against Vanderbilt. So pretty crazy statement to say. Not only that, these college programs that have been running stuff for a long time, to say you're going to overtake them is crazy. He did say there in Nashville, which is a hopping city, the most hopping city right now in the United States. But other than that, to come out with that statement is crazy. Not only that, they also asked him if he received any Big Ten offers. Obviously, the Big Ten is on the rise. It's neck and neck with the SEC right now. And he basically just dissed the Big Ten. He says, you want to play with the best. That's not the Big Ten. He's 0-2 in games in his career against the Big Ten, and he's outscored 104-7 against the Big Ten. So he's just coming out with crazy statements. Now, he said that he got offers from the SEC for $4 to $4.5 million. Again, the tricky thing with these NIL deals and NIL rumors, I don't know where they're coming from. I have a feeling a lot of it is smoke, because when I look across the SEC, where could this $4 to $4.5 million offer have come from? He's not getting it from Texas, obviously, with Arch Manning. I don't think he was getting it at Georgia with Gunnar Stockton. He wasn't getting it at Tennessee because we just said they didn't want to pay Nico that money. Alabama has 3 5-star QBs in their room, not doing that. LSU has your guy, Garrett Nussmeier, who's going to be arguably a first-round pick. They weren't going over Diego Pavia. We just mentioned South Carolina. They weren't going to go after him with Lenore Sellers. Texas A&M, I think they like Marcel Reed. Ole Miss, maybe, but with Austin Simmons, I doubt it. Missouri just threw a bag at Bo Prabula right after the Penn State. That was a big thing. Florida has DJ Lagway, which everybody's completely hyped about. Arkansas, Taylor Green. Obviously, Vanderbilt. Oklahoma, they got the best quarterback in the transfer portal in John Mateer. Auburn, they got Jackson Arnold out of the transfer portal. Could be Kentucky or Mississippi State, but I don't think Kentucky's throwing $4.5 million at Diego Pavia as a basketball school. And Mississippi State, I don't know if they're throwing that type of money either. So I would like to actually know where this money's coming from, because people are just making statements, it seems like, that possibly aren't true to maybe up their status for the next year, whatever it may be. Diego Pavia, 2,293 yards last year, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 74.6 QBR, 26th in the country. But summing everything up, like I said, this is a guy that is not a highly touted NFL prospect and just supposedly passed up a $4.5 million deal, which is insane, more money than he may ever see, to stay at Vanderbilt and be at the bottom of this conference. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much laid it out. He had a lot of things to say, and taking shots at even the Big Ten. And who won the national championship last year? It was a Big Ten team, and the Big Ten actually had a very good year. With Oregon being the best team, you had Penn State, you had Ohio State, all these really good teams last year. and on top of that, like you said, I think it's a lot of there's confidence. You want to have confidence in yourself, and when you say that Vanderbilt's going to run Tennessee, that's a huge statement. And you talked about the record. That's not pretty. Um, and I guess you can also factor in the win against Alabama too, with that being one of the biggest upsets last year. That was a crazy game. They definitely showed you, um, you know, some signs last year of being competitive against some of these better schools. But yeah, no, it's a guy that has a lot of confidence, and football has a way of humbling people. And he better back up a lot of these statements, because if he doesn't going into this year, he's going to end up looking really foolish. But we'll have to really wait and see on how this all plays out. But yeah, like you said, with it being a loaded QB class, not just next draft, but the following draft as well, it's going to be hard for him to really kind of be one of those top QB prospects, like you said, unless he really goes out there and has a big year and he puts Vanderbilt on the map, and they can somehow try to sneak into the playoffs with the expanded playoffs now. My guess is probably, even not with being a expert on college football, Vanderbilt's probably not going to get in, just because of all the other teams you listed between that and the Big Ten. So, and then also you got to factor in some of the other schools as well. So he's really going to have to go out there and have a big year. And Vanderbilt's really going to have to be fighting for a playoff spot for him to really, sit back and say, he made the right decision with staying with Vanderbilt. So that's kind of my thoughts on the situation.
And when you look, he said last year, I think he made like 150,000 on the season. Now, to pass up what he was offered, $4 to $4.5 million, you have to assume Vanderbilt is paying him in the $1 million range, because it's like, if you're passing up $4.5 million in a better situation, and you're not getting in the millions, and you're not an NFL prospect, like, what are you doing? Like we said, like, we love loyalty. You don't want to see people jumping ship, but like, when you get like a much better situation and you're still passing it up, like, what are we really doing? Like you said with Vanderbilt, they got to go out there and prove it. He said they have a ton of NIL money as well. Again, they also got to prove it too, because you could have a ton of NIL money, but so does Ohio State, so does Alabama, so does Texas. They could offer these guys the same money that you can, and they're not choosing Vanderbilt with what they have done in the last 10 years. Also, you look at the schedule. We were talking about the college football playoffs. It's going to be very hard for them to make it. We all know with the college football playoffs, you really got to have 2 losses unless it's a unique situation. We saw Clemson last year had a unique situation, but they play Alabama again this year. They play South Carolina. They play LSU. They play Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee. Like, for them to come out of that gauntlet with 2 losses, it just seems absurd to me. And again, parlaying it back to you to end things off, I just don't know if, like I said in the beginning of the video, are people just saying that they're getting?
It definitely could be.
Like, it just doesn't make sense. And when we laid out the team just now in the SEC, it's like nobody really needed a Diego Pavia. So it's like, are people just saying it? And what is your ultimate take to end the video on the NIL? What would you like to see players use the NIL and transfer portal for? What type of situations do you support, and what type of situations do you say, hey, maybe this isn't needed?
Well, I think you said it before, with the constant like bouncing around. If you don't like your situation, if you don't think you're going to get playing time, you're like, all right, well, I can get an offer at this school, I'm going to go there. And then if it doesn't work out there, like the constant just hopping constantly, that I don't really like. But I do think, I obviously, like with quarterbacks, it's that's very competitive. If I understand that, like, if you really don't think you're going to get an opportunity and you think you're going to get a better opportunity elsewhere, then you go and take it. But I think, for some people, like if you're in a smaller school, and if you're a good player and you're not really getting that opportunity, And there's a pathway to go into some of these bigger schools where you're going to get that, spot to shine. Then you take that opportunity. There's a lot of benefits to it, but of course, there's obviously going to be, the bad side of things too. But that just comes with it. There's always going to be good and bad. So, it's just part of the game now. I mean, that's why you kind of saw like Nick Saban call a career because he just didn't want to deal with it. So, yeah, that's kind of just how it is right now, the landscape of college football. But these guys are really good, and even if you're not going to get that money now in college, if you're a good player and you get recognized by some of these NFL scouts, you're going to get paid once you go to the pros. So there's also that as well. Like the money's going to come if you have talent and you got the work ethic, and you do the right thing, you stay out of trouble, you're going to get your money at some point. And also sponsorships come along with it as well. So you're going to get money that way too. So
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some crazy situations. Like we said, Nico Imeulava getting greedy. And we also saw that I forgot to mention Bryce Underwood out of high school getting a $12 million deal. Like, we're seeing people that hasn't even proved it yet at this stage getting more money than some NFL players, which is just absolutely insane. But again, I feel like with this NIL going over everything, you have to be a little delicate because a lot of things we're seeing is just the first of its kind, right? It's just NIL, new age, transfer portal. We're seeing a lot of new situations. Like we saw the first holdout. We saw a guy coming out getting multiple $1 million. So everything is just going overboard in this NIL era. And I just hope that, again, a lot of these people just don't go use the NIL and transfer portal for the wrong reasons. And I hope, again, we could have a more balanced out college football than just the big fishes getting everything. That wraps up this episode. Ken also has a podcast going over pretty much everything. MLB, NFL, NBA. He goes over everything. If you would like now to plug what you got going on to my viewers.
yeah, so the podcast is called Infinite Sports. It's a name from back when I did a radio show back at my college. So the YouTube account, it's at Infinite Sports Official. It's also on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter as well. Trying to grow it. And yeah, so if you're a big NFL fan, NBA, cover some NBA. We did a lot of Knicks coverage, baseball as well. Make sure to go check it out. Appreciate it.
We definitely have more things coming. If you would also like to go over there to see me, I did an episode with him. There should be another one coming out as well. So again, go over there, check him out. A lot of good stuff going on. That wraps up this episode on Diego Pavia and the NFL, and Sloppy Saturdays is out.